The Double is a 2013 film by Richard Ayoade, who also directed the quirky coming-of-age film Submarine. I mention that because, although The Double is a mystery thriller, there are also some coming-of-age themes that emerge throughout the film. Before watching this film, I kept mixing it up in my head with Youth in Revolt, which is a film starring Michael Cera, who, in an attempt to woo a girl, he creates another, more badass version of himself in his mind, I guess, to serve as inspiration and also a sort of relationship coach. This is honestly not too far away from the plot of The Double, in which the protagonist, played by Jesse Eisenberg, runs into his doppelganger, who's more assertive, more ruthless, and better with women. I actually started reading Dostoevsky's novel, and from that, it's pretty clear that what happens is the protagonist gets driven insane by bureaucracy, and it's suggested that he also develops some sort of mental ailment, possibly schizophrenia. The film also conveys these themes, including the depersonalized and de-individualized nature of bureaucracy. Everyone is the same and everyone is interchangeable. But the film also contains a lot more thematic possibilities and interpretations. As for the physical plot of what happened, right now I'm a fan of the theory that Simon James tried to commit suicide due to a mixture of loneliness, being overlooked by the girl he likes, and a general disillusionment with life. He lands on the awning, and as the detectives say, this prevents him from dying immediately. Instead, his brain swells as they're rushing him to the hospital via ambulance, and the entire film could be seen as a subjective account of all the events leading up to Simon's attempted suicide, as imagined by Simon's hallucinating, swelling brain. Evidence that supports this theory includes, of course, the use of the exact same subjective POV camera angle when the detectives talk about the mystery man's fall from the building and Simon's fall from the building, suggesting that maybe they're the same fall. There are also obvious parallels between Simon and the mystery man, including the wave before the fall and Hannah's description of the mystery man, which sounds like she could have been describing Simon. There's also the fact that this film takes place entirely at night. No matter if they're going to work in the morning or coming home at the end of the day, it's pitch black outside. There's no sunlight or natural light at all throughout the film. This maybe suggests that the events we're witnessing are all taking place in a single night, in the subjective mind of Simon in the ambulance. Also, the ambulance has a pretty harsh blue light, and it's the same light that casts glow across many scenes throughout the film. My other theory is that perhaps Simon is already dead and is stuck in a sort of weird psychological purgatory, which explains why he's one of the few young people in the film, while most other people died of natural causes. It would also shine some light on the many examples of anachronism throughout the film, including Melanie's outfit and the weird electronic music in an otherwise 50s setting. But these theories aren't the whole story. The core of the film, I believe, is a balancing act between death and change. In dreams, as well as in tarot cards, death symbolizes change. How much can you change before you become a completely different person, and the old you is dead? The film also plays with the word real. It can mean both real as in existing in the world, as well as real as in authentic, honest. A significant quote that gets repeated by Simon and Hannah and off-screen by James is about feeling like Pinocchio, like he's not a real boy. The film cleverly ties this idea to the theme of bureaucracy, resulting in a few funny scenes in which Simon no longer exists because his data was somehow lost in the system. Moreover, how much can a person really exist if they're interchangeable? The bureaucratic world represented in The Double is a world in which humans are represented by data and numbers. Each person's individualism is glossed over.
Because the Colonel knows there's no such thing as special people.
Just people.
The first line in the film is "You are in my place."
You're in my place.
This subtly suggests that society constructs a role for you to fill, and as soon as you're gone, someone else can easily fill the role. This is a pretty depressing thought, and could serve as one explanation for the numerous suicides apparently occurring in this town.
Do you see this sort of thing often?
Every day. That's what we do, suicides.
Only suicides?
That's right.
For the whole city?
We can barely cover the neighborhood.
In the rough draft of Simon's suicide note, he writes that one should amount to something, but it's really hard to amount to anything if you're replaceable. Replaceability is a complementary theme to the theme of bureaucracy, visually represented by James Simon being a copy of Simon James, then gradually replacing him professionally and sexually. Remember that towards the end of the film, Hannah also attempts to commit suicide, and this is because she finds out that James is also sleeping with Melanie as well as other women. Basically, she finds out that she's not special, but replaceable. Another thing about Pinocchio is that, well, he lies. That's a huge part of the story, and James tries to get Simon to lie on multiple occasions. He gets Simon to take his test for him, which is a form of lying. Then, he even coaches Simon on how to lie to Hannah so she'll start to like him.
I just don't know if that's me. That's why it's so good.
So here we get to the other big theme in this movie, changing for others. The whole character of James could be seen as a big fat lie, since he looks exactly like Simon. The only thing that differentiates the two is their behavior. This is emphasized further when, for example, Simon swears at this guy and he immediately thinks that he's interacting with James, because only James could be this rude.
Where are you going?
Fuck off.
Oh, hey, James.
James gets all the results that Simon wishes he could get, but to get these results, he needs to adopt some ruthless behaviors that are just not in line with his character, and in doing so, it's a sort of mini death. It's worth noting here that although Hannah speaks as if Simon and James are two separate characters, there aren't any scenes in which she's interacting with both Simon and James at the same time, so it really is like Simon trying on a new persona. I think the film even hints that she causes Simon to adopt the James persona, or create James in his mind. It's no accident that she works a copy machine. On multiple occasions, Simon comes to her asking for one copy.
One copy.
Yes, please.
And that's just what he gets. She's also frequently awash with the blue light, or otherwise associated with the color blue, which signifies fantasy or escape in this otherwise drab and yellowy world. The ambulance is, of course, also associated with the color blue, signifying the ultimate escape, taking the protagonist to a better place where he's unique. But at some point, you go from experimenting with new behaviors to actually becoming that new person. It's almost Frankenstein-esque in that something you create can completely take over. At which point does your old self no longer exist? The chicken and egg thing was probably a wrench deliberately thrown in to keep people from fully understanding this film, and I still have no idea what it meant, but it does somehow align with this idea that something you give birth to, something you create, can kill you. Let's not forget that Simon and James had many bonding moments before things turned sour. The apartments could be seen as a psychological space where one aspect of Simon's personality, and remember, this is a personality that Hannah labeled as creepy and pathetic, was killed off and later physically replaced by another persona, James. We all shift our behavior for the audience, and sometimes arrive at coming-of-age stages in our lives where we undergo a radical identity change. But how much is too much? Thanks for watching. Hey guys! Well, I hope you enjoyed that video. It was just my interpretation and I would love to hear yours, so let me know what you thought in the comments below. Also, if you enjoy content like this, consider pledging your support for this channel on Patreon. As always, thanks for watching and I hope to see you next week.